So when Mr. Pace has everybody introduce themselves, please speak into the microphone. We are live right now.
Good afternoon. I'd like to again welcome everyone to the NAACP law enforcement meeting, something that we've been doing since 2004. And this, oh, did I say 04? 2014. Jeez. Does it seem it's been that long?
Yeah,
then?
right.
2014. So we're going to start with Lieutenant Mason in the back row, introduction, respective title and municipality, and we'll go over that.
Okay, like Mr. Pace said, Lieutenant Mason, I'm with the Bradley Police Department.
Jerry Sudduth, Office Manager for Kankakee County Sheriff's Office.
Chad Kulawunzu, Chief of Corrections, Kankakee County Sheriff's Office.
Let's go, Lori.
Lori Gadboy, Executive Board for the NAACP.
Lieutenant Jose De Jesus, Illinois State Police District 21.
Captain Aaron Hersey, Illinois State Police District 21.
Myron Riley, Kankakee County Jail Ministry.
Vince Davis, Pembroke Township OIG Inspector General.
Deputy Chief Dave Anderson, Bourbon Police Department.
Chief Frank Cosman, Kankakee Police Department.
Deputy Chief Hunt, Kankakee City Police Department.
Commander Austin, Kankakee Police Department.
Doug Redenius, Bailiff, Kankakee County Courthouse.
Jim Simone, Psychologist, Kankakee County Sheriff's Department.
Sergeant Mike Burns, Manteno PD.
Al Swinford, Chief of Police, Village of Manteno.
Steve Hunter, Vice President.
NAACP. Andy Wheeler, County Board Chairman.
Theodis Pace, President, Kankakee County NAACP.
Mike Downey, Kankakee County Sheriff.
Again, I'd like to welcome everyone. I just want to think about all of the work that we've been doing since 2014, and particularly within the last 3 to 4 months. So Lieutenant Mason, can you or Chief Swinford, you want to read the minutes and we can just accept the basic topics of discussion from our last meeting, which was on July 23rd. Oh.
Oh, Al, you have a copy of them, or is it? Yeah.
At the previous meeting on July 23rd, we covered numerous topics. We started with the implementation of the 10 shared principles. We spoke about the 8 that can't wait, the 8 police reforms that are being discussed nationwide, and where we're at with those, and a review of police policies and procedures as it pertains to use of force and the public protests going on. We discussed the status of the community response team. I'm sure we'll discuss that further today. And Jim Rowe spoke about the civilian review board he's working on. And then there was a conversation about body cameras and where different departments are with that. And then we had opened it up for public comment, or open comment, and then Theodo's closing comment.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to second to accept the minutes? Moved by Vice President Stephen Hunter. Are there any questions, additions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is public comment. So other than, do we have any individuals representing the community? Any comments? Okay, thank you. Again, Ferguson, Missouri, 2014, and we've been having these meetings to ensure that the safety the bridge building of our respective community and law enforcement, which means the 8 can't wait, the 10 shared principles that all of the municipalities in Kankakee County have signed on board. As of Monday of this past week, the village of Moments adopted the 10 shared principles. So we don't have a representative today. I don't see the chief here, but we want to applaud Mayor Steele and the alderman in the village of Moments on the acceptance and the adoption of the 10 shared principles. So again, that is a show of progress that we're doing here in Kankakee County, the adoption, the implementation of the 10 shared principles, and even just the basic conversation of the 8 can't wait. So that is why we're here, and we just need to continue to do the progressive work that we're doing with the NAACP and again with law enforcement. It's not every day that you get community-based, even state organizations such as the local NAACP throughout the state of Illinois, those 42 branches, and the Illinois Association of Police Chiefs to come together about building bridges, again, between law enforcement and community of color in our respective communities. Our meeting is to address, and again, is to build those relationships. And with the current climate of 2020, it is very important that we take the work that we do quite very seriously even with, like I just said, with the Village of Moments, the adoption of the 10 shared principles. So that's a good thing. So at this time, we want to go to Lieutenant Mason, Chief Swinford, and Alderman Emeritus Hunter to deal with item 6 there. And we want to talk about our training, some of the things that's coming up. And Stevie, even if you want to, along with Chairman Wheeler, you guys want to adopt and talk about the resolution at this time. Yeah.
As you guys may recall, throughout the country, there's been various initiatives regarding defunding law enforcement throughout the country, especially the initiative which transpired up in Minnesota with George Floyd. Other municipalities throughout the country have made overtures to do such thing. You may recall in our last county board meeting, we, as a county board, addressed a resolution regarding the matter of defunding law enforcement. And I'll just read you the content of the resolution, and as an adjunct to that, I'll talk about the Hispanic Partnership meeting in which the chairman, as well as the sheriff, attended, and yours truly, as the vice chairman of that particular organization, in the presence of Hispanic Partnership members, as well as the organization called Connect, posed questions to the sheriff, which he ably responded, as well as the county board chairman. Anyway, the resolution reads as follows, and I'll have the county chairman to amplify on this particular document. A resolution supporting the full funding of Kankakee County Public Safety Departments, supporting legal immigration, reaffirming our commitment to social equity, increased mental health funding, and a policy of Kankakee County Board to support national immigration reform. I'd like to say we received unanimous consent. There was a motion made by yours truly, as well as a unanimous second to adopt this particular resolution, and it was a part of consideration initially at the executive committee, then brought forward to the full county board, and which was acted upon. I'd like to thank for consultation with the Sheriff Downey, as well as the chairman of the county board, Andy Wheeler, for their robust involvement in this particular document. There were many positive comments made, much to my surprise, regarding the adoption of this particular document. Additionally, going back to what I said earlier, the Hispanic Partnership of Kankakee County held a meeting, I think the last Thursday of July, if I'm correct, and many members of at the Kankakee Library, the fourth floor, I'm the vice chairman of that organization. Our featured presenter was Sheriff Downey. Many members of Connect were there too, and that's an advocacy, I'll put that in quotes, group, organization, were there. All the seats were taken, practicing social distancing. Many questions were posed to the sheriff, and he dispelled a lot of different fallacious rumors that were passed around regarding people being in cages and so forth, and misinformation regarding numbers and policies and so forth. And I think he ably responded to the questions and provided them with specificities and empirical evidence to refute the assertions that have been made throughout the community, large C. Additionally, the county chairman of the board was there too, and he answered questions, and I made comments as well too. And I'll yield to the chairman regarding the contents of this resolution.
The mandate that was put on me as the chairman by the executive committee was to have a resolution come before the full board that rejected defunding police and also spoke to some of the other social equity things and mental, really everything that had to do with the defund situation, and also supporting ICE. It was a very broad scope, and so I had to, when I wrote this, I had to put, and I had a consultation with obviously the sheriff and Mr. Hunter and others, but there's so much wrapped into that. When people say defunding, some people that were for that were saying that's divert money to mental health, which is, I don't know anybody in this room doesn't think that mental health is a major part of the problems that you see within your own jurisdictions. Untreated mental health, unfunded treatment of mental health. So we had to go a lot broader than that and kind of tie in everything the county has done with affirmative action, with the 10 shared principles, everything that we have done as a county, but also put down what we believe in and what we want to work towards as a governmental unit and support and lobby for. Again, to dispel some of the things that people are saying, but also to really say what you believe in and what you want to work towards. And I won't go read through every line in here, but it's something that I don't know that the county has ever done. It totally flew under the radar. There's been no reporting on it at all. And I think while the county board doesn't make grand political statements, because we're usually about business and not about politics in this case, this statement needed to be made because we want to work with people to affect the change that we want to see in our community. And whether it's as a county, I try to get people all together under the tent to work things out, just like this organization is trying to do right here. This was like a framework to make sure that regardless of political affiliation or your, the community you come from, ethnicity, whatever, this is what we believe in, and this is where we want to go. And whoever here is to partner with us in this spirit, we're here to do it. As long as they're obviously reputable people. We don't want to definitely partner with anybody and everybody, as was said in the meeting. So we definitely want to be careful of who our partners are, but as long as you're moving in that direction, we're here to help in any way that we possibly can. So that was the general gist of it, and when Steve asked me to bring it and talk about it, it was to let this group know that we're ready for the rubber to meet the road on the county level, and it seems like you guys are doing that within your communities as well. So you've got a partner. That's all I can say in the county. And if we can build the tent that everybody can be under, then that's fine too. So, and I'll answer any questions if anybody has any. It's a long document, verbose.
Well, in reading it, you went as far as back of dealing with the Civil Rights Act of '64 and something that the NAACP is definitely being progressive, and that's the Voter Right Act of 1965 that you mentioned. I see that you're talking about the icon of Mr. Ben Cox, the adoption and of the 10 shared principle to improve relationship, again, between law enforcement and the community they serve as of February 2020. Again, I don't know if something that we need PR. You said, I mean, it's gone underneath the radar. It's items like this that our community fail to realize the progressive things that we try to do as an organization speaking on behalf of the NAACP and county government. And I think sometimes the citizens need to be aware of the things that we be doing. If they talk about the negative things, then also we need to talk about the right things and the progressive things that are happening, particularly with the relationships that individuals are having in the county and with the major topic of police reform. I still maintain that of the 102 counties in the state of Illinois, I don't think on August the 19th, a Wednesday, that anywhere throughout the state that you got a body meeting like this with state police and other municipalities in their respective county. So are we doing the right thing? I would say yes. Are we going to always agree? No. And so again, maybe we need to, with the local radio station, the local media, the Daily Journal, and we need to maybe a press release, press conference, and make the individuals aware. Now, this is being recorded live, so it's another way that we could get it out to the respective community by going to the county website. But I think, and according to County Board Hunter member stated if you look at item 1 through 9, now therefore be resolved, as the revenues, we are outright rejecting the policy of defunding law enforcement, the commit to the affirmative action policy of '07. Those are topics and terms that are not currently, particularly item 2, that people don't even talk about anymore, affirmative action, per se, because everything is being about police reform, protests. And so I just think this is a good document to draw that parallel between the organizations who are thinking that you're not doing the right thing. However, we're trying to mend the fence to do the right thing. So I don't know if anyone else, have any comments, but I think, press conference, press release that we need to do this.
I will tell you, Theodis, and you bring up a good point about the media, and I will tell you from experience that they do watch these videos, and they do quote people from these videos or audio, whether it's the printed press or the radio. So they do go back and watch these if they're not watching them live. They do watch them, and they do take what is said in these meetings, so they are aware of them. So to their credit, they're like everybody else. They have limited resources just like everybody else, so they do utilize things like this, which is why it's good that this is broadcast out there so they are able to see it and pick up on it.
Reiterate, if it bleeds, it leads, maybe. But if I remember correctly, the sheriff made comments about the relationship with this organization as well as NAACP probably being a model for the country. And I think that speaks to what you had said, Chairman Pace, regarding out of the other 102 counties, are they doing anything similar to what we're doing here? Additionally, if I remember, Chairman Wheeler, I think the print media was there when we adopted this, matter of fact, but he may have been there for some other reasons. Yeah, it never got any notoriety or print or an exposure, nor did the media even show up at the KCC venue, in which the shared principles were signed off as well too. So I don't know. There's no fights here. There's no shootings here. So hopefully, as you guys have indicated, that we'll receive some exposure.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, sure.
The one thing I wanted to mention is that this document is full of things that are shared things that we all agreed on unanimously. There's things in rhetoric that people assume are mutually exclusive. You can't have one without the other. And so we tried to address those things within the document. Like, one of the things is if I lived in another country and it was not where I wanted to be, I wouldn't want to wait 20 years to come here either. So we're forcing people into making a choice that's for their well-being and turning them into air quote criminals, if you will, by a poor immigration policy. But that doesn't mean at the same time you shouldn't know everybody that comes into your country. Those are not mutually exclusive ideas. Well, it seems like we have polar opposites, and then when the president changes, everybody flips sides on the issue. And it's just playing games with people's lives. That's just on the immigration policy. And then another 8 years later, it changes back, and then the other side shuts it down. And so we try to at least look at this as mature adults who have hearts, who also feel that the laws of the United States and the Illinois Constitution and the U.S. Constitution are documents and really principles that need to be followed. And that doesn't mean by, defunding police or disarming ICE, maybe focusing on the issues that are really at hand instead of people who just want to live here because it's the best place in the world to live. And so as a county board, it's three parties actually now. It's not just a two-party system. We have three at the county board. So we all kind of put all that aside and said, this is what our heart and our mind says. And then can we go forward with this? And I think it's an extension of what you guys do here. And we appreciate the leadership because I don't know if we'd have got to this point without the groundwork that this group has done over the past, well, since 2004. Just messing with you.
Turn it, yeah. Did you? Yeah.
It states here that Illinois ranks bottom of the list for financial support of mental health. Does drug and alcohol programs, does that fall under mental health?
I'm not sure, but I tell you, yeah, what happened was that I think we had somebody to affirm that. Jackie Haas concurred with that particular statement. So there was discussion regarding all the contents and the statements in here. So we had empirical evidence to support that. So, and she's of course the mental health specialist or professional expert, and so she said, yeah, that was correct.
Well, the reason that I asked that question is I see every single day people need drug and alcohol support, not so much mental, not to take away from mental support, Doc. But I was just wondering if drug and alcohol was funded in a completely different manner.
The short answer to that would be yes, because they're different departments. But the longer answer is that both of those categories are underfunded.
Sure.
Without a doubt.
Right.
And there's not enough services. I think everybody in this room would agree, unfortunately, that corrections is probably the largest supplier of community mental health, not only in our community, but in not only our state, but this country. And it's a problem because we're not set up to do mental health, and it makes you guys' job harder, makes my job harder. Yes. And they go hand in hand. There's a lot of codependency. People are mentally ill, and they self-medicate with drugs.
Well, Hold on.
DMS5, under the access, alcohol is a factor because, as you said, it's a self-medication, and there's many diagnoses, such as in mental health, and alcohol contribute a big factor in it. And I would say alcohol is a part of mental health, a great part, because since it's been defunded in mental health, most people do what? They medicate themselves with drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
If I could I?
Sure.
Spot on, absolutely. And just so you know, I was the chairman of the Helen Wheeler Center Board, and then as the chairman of the county, I see where those two connect. And so when people couldn't get access to a psychiatrist and get their meds, they would get to still see a psychiatrist, but they would self-medicate, get in trouble, and then we'd see them in here. So it's patients that were there, and it's much cheaper to get them there, just as a financial side of things, and it's probably more effective to address it when it's outside of the building and they're not part of the system. And Dr. Sloan, you'd be able to speak to that. Yeah, it's the self-medicating is the root cause is untreated mental health on a lot of this stuff, and so that's why we demanded more money, because we're not just 50th in the United States, we're 51st. DC spends more money than we do as a state on mental health. It's appalling. Now, that was just a couple years ago. It may have changed, but that's the latest data that I had.
I don't think it's changed. I think it's gotten worse.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's deal with, we know that State's Attorney Rowe has been, I know he attended the public safety meeting this month with the city of Kankakee. I know there was a meeting that he held with representative from the village of Moments regarding Civilian Review Board. I know that he talked to other municipalities and other police chiefs. So I know he's not here today, but I know that's an attempt to have individuals to, again, rethink and take a position on the Civilian Review Board. And so hopefully in our next meeting, we'll have another conversation on that. However, I think the next step with our group deals with our training committee, again with Lieutenant Mason, Marlo Jones from the State's Attorney's Office, Mr. Hunter, and Chief Swinford. So do we want to talk about that, where we're going to go, the next step with training?
Sure. It's taken a long process. We've been dealing with it for months, trying to get this list of participants, and we've whittled away at it. We've heard from 2/3 of them. I think at this point, it's not productive to keep waiting. I'd say let's go forward with what we got. If we can pick up people along the way, let's do that. But I think at this point, we need to set up a committee meeting for the training. We've already got an outline. Bridget Bertrand just spoke with her yesterday. She's ready to go. So if we get our committee together and finalize the training syllabus, if you will, and get in contact with these people, start looking at a date. One thing we need to discuss is, obviously we planned all this before COVID, is do we need to look at a virtual option, an online option, or do we think we can do it in person? So it may be something we need to discuss before or maybe the committee can discuss that, but I think we could probably do it safely together. I think it would be more effective if we could do it in person, and I think we can do it safely.
Yeah, I think so. When you think in terms of a venue, when different debates transpire and presentations are made at KCC at that auditorium there, that's probably, big enough. And to practice social distancing, if you just reflect at that location, it seems like it may be appropriate, or maybe some other venue. But yeah, I think you're correct.
Yeah, I think one of them seats 100 people, and one of them seats 200 people. We're going to have 20, so I think we could spread them out pretty good. If we may end up doing 2 of them or 3 of them, so it'll divide it up even more. So I spoke with her briefly about it.
We can always use this room as well if that's the number.
Yeah, it is probably going to be fairly small depending on how many people are available on a given night. So, this would probably be ideal. So I'd say let's move forward with the training, and if we can contact these other people, we'll do that. But let's get going with what we got. We put it off long enough.
Chief, the letter that went out latter part of middle of July, well, I know a number of those response team members contacted me, so they're aware and looking forward to the training. So again, I would say let's just move forward, and we have 2 of them here, just in the meeting now. So if we could get 20, I think that would be a very good start.
Yeah, I think that's what I've got at this point, about 20, 22,
Right.
something like that.
So I would say Donna Sample, I think that's her name, right? So that's free. Matter of fact, I just talked to her last Thursday. So there's a number of, Valon Jordan, so a number of people are looking for our next step to do that. So I would say after the meeting, we could set up that committee meeting and get Mrs. Bertrand in, and we just move forward to what we have.
Yep, I agree. Maybe next week we'll look at a date.
Yes.
Chairman, is it appropriate to record, if it's in here, to record this, to make it available to other people? The training, or I don't know the complete content, but you tell me. I mean, okay. You see where I'm going, though. You might make it available to other people that if they can't be here, they want to take it back to wherever they're from, they could show the training to other people. I don't know, just thought. Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna ask, so there you go. You saved me a little breath there. The other thing I was gonna say is what Chief Swinford said is we've all been in these Zoom conferences and everything else. Sometimes if we could use the room like Sheriff Downey said here, then those that can't make it, instead of putting it off like Chief Swinford said, I agree. We've been putting it off long enough. Let's get this going in case we do have an issue. Then we'll have this in place. We can offer it where we've got 3 screens. We can use this room too. So I don't know if we've thought about. I've got a free Zoom account I use for teaching and stuff. That's like a 45-minute limit. That's just an example, but I don't know if you guys have something here, Sheriff, or something that we look into through this board or whatever. But I'm just throwing it out there. It'd be nice to have both avenues so that we can have people there, still present, but just not in person, like Chief Swinford said.
Right. So we want to just meet after and have the committee meeting, contact those individuals. If nothing else, we can meet with them personally via a phone call, follow up again with I think we have most of them email address, and then have them contact us, and then we just, out of the committee meeting, we can come up with that date of training and just move forward that way. Okay. 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 So we're good there. County Board Chairman, again, very good job with the resolution. And County Board Member Hunter mentioned a model. And the Sheriff and I had a conversation. So, Sheriff, you just want to talk about your thoughts on how we could try to get the Illinois, Sheriff Association, along with the Police Association, to take a look at some of the things that we've been doing here since 2014.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I continue to believe it, that I think this group and what we do for our community should be a model not only for the state of Illinois, but nationwide. And I think we were way ahead of the curve when we started doing this. Not to say that things still don't happen, but the communication part of it is worth its weight in gold. And I am, my goal is to take this to the Illinois Sheriff's Association, to present it to them, to say, this is how we get started statewide. And I don't know how many regions, and this is information that I would need from you, what areas there are to get the particular sheriffs involved. But it is certainly something that needs to happen in the state of Illinois. And I think this is a great example for people to see it. So yeah, we will do that. Actually, our conference that was scheduled in September just got canceled due to COVID. But I do communicate with the director of the Sheriff's Association at least once or twice a week. So I will bring this to him and see if we can't get it moving statewide and be an example not only for Kankakee County, but for the state of Illinois.
Okay. Before I think we're moving to be out here by 1 o'clock. If we go back and just look, have most of the police department since our last meeting, and actually since June 2nd and our last meeting, which is on the 23rd, what is the status of most of the departments on the review of their policies and procedures? Have everybody pretty much reviewed those? I know it was a topic at the City of Kankakee Public Safety Committee and one of the council meetings. So, anyone? Everybody's pretty much had that review of their respective policies, procedures?
Are you talking about as far as use of force goes?
Yeah, use of force,
Yeah.
just policies in general, yeah.
I think most of our departments are on Lexapol in the city. City's on Lexapol as well. So we all have bought the same exact policy, and Lexapol reviews them regularly. I think they just sent out a big update, was it yesterday or the day before, on use of force, which is the advantage of having Lexapol, because they have a staff of attorneys and people looking at these things as current events are unfolding and updating them very quickly, much quicker than we could with, we don't have staffs of attorneys to look at that kind of thing. So I think the advantage is, number one, all of our policies are very similar. So what we do in Manteno is very similar to what Bradley, Bourbonnais, or Kankakee City is doing, because we all have the same policy, basically. We could modify them for our own department, but 99% of them are going to be identical. So I think we're in pretty good shape as far as our policies go.
Lieutenant?
Say the same thing about Lexapol, and then in addition to that, they have this thing called a DTB, which stands for Daily Training Bulletin, so it pushes out to all our officers. So now it not only is an administrative level, pushed out to the officers to acknowledge these different changes, whatever they are. So if it's a best practice change, if it's a law change, if, like the chief said, if it's some kind of a new state mandated reform movement, then it automatically gets pushed to Lexapol through the system, through their attorneys and everything, and then we get it and trickle it down. So it doesn't just stay at our level. We filter it down through the ranks.
Good, good. Anything else? Any other comments?
Who is CALEA certified other than the city of Kankakee? Anybody else? You CALEA certified?
Oh,
The ILEAT too, which is the Illinois accreditation part of it. The main reason most people don't have it, and just because you don't have it, and at least in my experience, doesn't mean you don't still adhere to those principles. It's because it is a long, arduous process, takes time, takes manpower, takes people to do it. But we set up those policies and procedures we were just talking about so that they basically mirror that whole CALEA standards. That's what it's about, is maintaining that standard and make sure everybody's on the same page and constant review of it. So another thing that I just wanted to add because of the recording and just for the group is that there is an accountability to all our people too on this. So it's not just here's our new policies and here's our daily training bulletins, or however each department does it, but they have to sign off on it one way or another, whether they're acknowledging they read it, they actually go online and take these daily, they can even do them on their phones if they want to, but most of them do them in their squad cars or in a laptop in the department or whatever. And it shows who's ever done whatever for, reviewed it and basically agreed that they acknowledge it, or you can't move forward. So there's an accountability factor, which probably needed to be mentioned anyway. Thank you.
good. Chief?
Yesterday, the Illinois Chiefs Association had a meeting, and I listened to it on Zoom, and they addressed some of these things. One of them was accreditation, and CALEA is an excellent certification, but it's labor-intensive. It's a lot of work, and a lot of work to maintain. It's very expensive. They are working with the Illinois Sheriff's Association to come up with an Illinois certification that maybe is a little more doable for smaller agencies. So that might be something we can look for in the future. They also addressed the 10 shared principles. They're pushing that very hard. Police reforms, they're working with the legislature pretty closely on making sure we have good reforms that are doable and work for everybody. and different policies and procedures. So they're actually working actively right now on almost all the things we're talking about.
Commander Olson,
Key Police Department has been dual accredited since I think it's 2009. We're on our fourth accreditation. We're both ILEAP and CALIA accredited. I was a accreditation manager for 4 years, and since it passed it on to Sergeant Ivy, but I'm still involved in it. Like Chief Swinford and Lieutenant Mason said, I can tell you from firsthand experience, it is labor intensive and it's very expensive. However, it does have a lot of, we meet a lot of the 8 can't wait based on clear accreditation, because it requires us to do a lot of data collection and have a lot of fail-safes throughout our policy and throughout our procedures to make sure that we are meeting all those demands prior to this 8 can't wait came out. So I just wanted to speak to that and say that it is a value process, and ILEAP is a lot cheaper than CALIA, and it is a state accreditation, and it's very affordable and easy to do.
Well, let me ask a question too. I know that Monday, the city of Kankakee incorporated their body cams into the bond issue, I think. And I was wondering if anybody knows, sheriff or anybody else has any idea regarding Department of Justice, DOJ, regarding funding for body cams or any kind of state stuff, initiative at all? Anybody know about any of that stuff?
Now, because what's going to happen is if it ends up being a national mandate, it's going to be crazy expensive for departments, especially smaller size or a large agency like state police. I mean, it's not so, the grants that are out there are for the equipment, and the ones I've seen are usually just, there's federal grants and local grants, but they're usually just time specific. So we missed the window from the last one, but we're already on board to try to get the next one. But that does not cover the most important aspect of it that citizens don't understand, and that's the cloud storage of it. Because you have to have redaction software, so you obviously can't have innocent people's faces out there. So I redacted video personally myself for FOIAs and stuff. It's took me 2 hours to do a 6-minute fight at the video before, to manually blur out people's, where if it's built into the software like Axon has, which is, you know, the premier leader in the whole thing, very expensive. Like for our department, I think it was like, I can't quote it exactly, but I know you do like a 5-year payment plan to get brand new body cameras, brand new tasers, and works well with others. They play nice together, and it was like 60-some thousand because it's based on officer size. So it's extremely expensive, and none of, like I said, the important part is none of the grants cover the important part, which is the cloud storage. So it's nice you get something off the equipment, whether it's half off or 80%, but then you still have to worry about how you're paying it and how you're maintaining it and who's going to upload them and download them and, you know, FOIAs and everything else. So that's where the money's at. And right now that hasn't been addressed to my knowledge, unless I know Chief Swinford was involved with that a lot, but nationally, if there's any other funding out there, which hopefully with all these reform movements they do something like that, but we know that normally doesn't happen.
Yes.
In regards to you mentioned about, Chief, you mentioned about the Illinois certification for police departments. My question to you, would it be under the auspices of the Illinois Local Law Enforcement Training Board? If so, shouldn't there be some kind of legislation passed and to have a mandated state similar program to CLIA?
I think that's who they're working with as a legislature. I don't think they'll mandate it, just because there's so many little, very small departments that have such little resources. You know, say a St. Anne might have a little trouble unless it's free and they're providing services, which that's not going to be the case. It's going to be hard for some departments to do it. So I doubt they'll mandate it. I don't know for sure, but they are working with the legislature to create it.
Oh, I mentioned about the use of force continuum, in terms of pretty much everybody's procedures are pretty much geared the same way, but I think it should be a standard use of force continuum, a standard, because if you have one department is doing it this way and this department is doing it a different way, I mean, there's no transparency, you know, because everybody's all scattered all over the place doing, you know, because the use of force continuum, there's a lot of there's so much, the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, the body goes to sort of reactions, physiological changes, like I said before, tunnel vision. So I strongly believe we need one standard use of force continuum training program, because when you have different departments, as I said before, it's one department might say this is legal, the other department say it's not legal. You understand? Because the use of force continuum talks about officer presence, soft hand, hard hand, impact weapon, deadly force, and and the last but not least, deadly force. They're not following those use of force continuum. They're just jumping from one level to the other without using discretion. So we need one training board use of force training program. That's my opinion.
Chief Cosman.
There's a couple things. On one, on the body cameras, so like when we were looking for our funding for that, so to get an idea, it's like $300,000 for I think 3 or 5 year program. I forgot exact for the 5-year program. But in the state grant that we had applied for was going to come up with around $100,000 of it. So it's still $200,000 is what we if we get reimbursed. So we'll apply again when it comes in, but it's not guaranteed. You got to buy it, and then you got to apply for the grant, and hopefully you get the money back. So that's not a slam dunk anything. But there is now some groups out there that are talking against having body cams. And I mentioned, I'll say, we're here talking Black Lives Matter. There was from what I heard, there's some talk in that organization that not to have body cams because they're not as they'd rather spend the money on other things. It's part of the however you want to say, the funding or whatever of police, and not having money go towards it. I believe in body cams. I think it's the perfect accountability, the most that you can have out there, and it solves a lot of problems. Just like the video cameras in-car cameras solved a lot of problems by having cameras on the in the cars, because a lot of it is he said, she said, and it's very hard as administrator to come up with a decision on what to do, and it's probably not satisfying to either party, because it's a lot of times it's unsustained because you can't tell if it's one way or the other. And I don't know what's better than having a camera there trying to show how the situation. They're not perfect, but I think they're a good step in that direction. And the other thing with the use of force continuum, it might be just semantics that we're talking about there, but there is, the U.S. Supreme Court has already come up with a standard set for the United States, and that's what's objectively reasonable. And that's the standard that it is. So if you jump from command presence to deadly force without being objectively reasonable, that would be, the Supreme Court has already spoken on that. And that's what a lot of our policies are all based on the Supreme Court rulings. And that's what the Lexapol, and that's what our standards are based on. Everyone's on it.
Excuse me. So that ruling is bound by court ruling, right? It's pretty much stare decisis. So if there's a ruling, so it shouldn't be a problem to get a mandated law, for all departments to come up with the same training and same procedure. So it's stare decisis, meaning that it's already in place and you can't circumvent from that decision.
Whenever we have use of force training, in order to become certified by the state, use of force training, the program or the syllabus has to go to the our training mobile training unit, which is tied into the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, and that they approve it or not approve it based on those standards. So it's not a state law, but it's more of a regulatory law through the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. That's my understanding.
If I may, do most of the other chiefs or your respective staff feel that there's a rethinking, Chief Cosman or Deputy Chief Hunt, Chief Swinford, that is a rethinking of body cams not being what they were maybe when Bourbon A, this your third, fourth year? 6 years. Right. So, I mean, it's a rethinking of,
I don't think on the
this-
law enforcement side there's a rethinking of it. It's just that there's part of the allocation of funds. There's talk in reference to using the funds in other places, because it is expensive. But I don't think that gets to the heart of our well, I guess it gets to the heart, but the actual confrontation between police and citizen and making better accountability and better relations, it doesn't really address that if you take the money away from the cameras.
and the reason I stated that was that I've seen a couple of city administration that maybe want to move away from body cams to put that money elsewhere. But I would say that Chief Phelps would say that in those 6 years with Bourbonnais, it has been proven quite fruitful.
Correct.
Right.
We don't want to get rid of. We don't want to get rid of them. I mean, we've had almost zero complaints substantiated. If someone came in, we show them the body cam video, end of story. It gives such clarity and transparency to everybody of what we do.
Right.
It records 30 seconds prior to the call started. So you see all that interaction beforehand of what really went on.
Okay.
And it works both ways. An officer is going to be more careful about what he says and does when he knows he's on camera, and the citizen too. So it solves problems on both sides, the way I see it.
Okay, so we'll just continue to promote that, and so it's all about funding. I can remember Deputy Chief Hunt maybe over a year ago talking about it's easy to get the equipment, but again, the storage. And you guys were just so happen you got funded through the Friendship Festival Committee and some other funds that you received.
Correct. We got some funding there, and then we also just presented our capital plan to our village board, saying this is what we need, moving forward. We had our standalone server on our previous body cams. We're now in a cloud-based retention for the cameras now.
Right. So it's any just going around the room. Are there any respective chief, any other body want to make any comments before we close? Anything else? Next meeting, Wednesday the 21st. Everyone want to check. That'll be October, and that will give the training committee starting today till October. That hopefully between now and our next meeting, we will have our first training session. Is that good, Chief Swinford? You think we could?
Yes.
Lieutenant Mason, Hunter, you think we could pull that off between today and the 21st of October? We could have at least a training session with our response team. October, Wednesday, 21st here, 12 noon. Is that good? Okay, so our next meeting, 12 noon, Wednesday, October 21st. Is that good, Sheriff? All right. Yep. So can we get no other comments? Again, it's not every day we get law enforcement all together, state police here in Kankakee County, where we're trying to just continue to build positive bridges among our respective communities. Get a motion to adjourn. We got Deputy Chief Hunt and Lieutenant Mason. Wednesday, 12 noon. Thank you.